Apples and pears come in a number of different varieties which make them delicious and versatile to cook and bake with. I've made 4 very different dishes. Why not click on the one that takes your fancy and I'll show you how I made it. This recipe demonstrates a really simple way of combining the delicious flavours of pear and chocolate to make a delightful dessert that's going to serve 4 people. So first, preheat your oven to 180 degrees C, 160 for a fan oven or gas mark 4. First, lightly butter 4 ramekins. Then add 75 grams of butter to 75 grams of caster sugar and cream together. Add 2 eggs, one at a time, and beat together well after each addition. I'm using an electric whisk, but you could use a wooden spoon. Add 25 grams of cocoa and beat once more. So the next step is to sieve 75 grams of self-raising flour and 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder into the mixture and fold together. Then divide between the 4 buttered ramekins. Take 4 small pears and cut the base off each one. This will ensure they sit straight. Press a pear into the middle of each ramekin. Then place in the oven and bake for 16 minutes. The cake has risen and the pears are looking perfect. To serve, I'm going to drizzle each one with a spoonful of honey and a light dusting of icing sugar. And there you have it, a quirky and distinctive little dessert, pear and chocolate cake pots. Did you know there's over 3,000 varieties of pear and over 7,000 varieties of apple? If you want to see them in action, just click on a recipe below. This apple and vanilla flan makes a perfect party dish. It serves 12 people and is perfect for sharing with friends. I'm going to show you how to make the pastry, but if you want to save time, you could buy ready rolled short crust pastry. To start, sieve 340 grams of plain flour and 115 grams of icing sugar into a large bowl. Then using the tips of your fingers, rub in 185 grams of cubed butter until the mixture resembles fine breadcrumbs. Crack 3 eggs into a bowl and gently whisk together. Add half to your mix along with 1½ tablespoons of milk. Then fold through using your hands, bringing the mixture together to form a dough. Wrap in cling film and chill in the fridge for 30 minutes. This recipe calls for 11 apples. Now I'm going to need 8 to make the puree filling. So to start, I need to peel, core and roughly chop each apple and add these to the bowl. Then juice 1½ lemons and use half to coat the apples. Place in a medium saucepan, pour over 150 grams of light brown sugar and 2¼ tablespoons of vanilla extract. Simmer for 15 minutes until soft. Then mash lightly with a fork to make a chunky puree and set to one side. So once your pastry is nicely chilled, you want to flour a clean work surface and roll out your pastry to the thickness of a pound coin. This will need to be big enough to line a loose-bottomed 35 by 21 centimetre rectangular fluted tart tin. A good tip is to place the tin over the pastry just to make sure you've rolled it out enough. Drape the pastry over a rolling pin and lower into your tin. Gently mould the pastry into the ridges and the corners. Then trim the excess pastry by running your rolling pin over the tin. Prick the base a few times with a fork and chill again for 15 minutes. In the meantime, preheat your oven to 200 degrees C, that's 180 in a fan oven or gas mark 6. I'm going to bake the pastry blind. Now you'd need to do this if you were using ready roll shortcrust pastry too. So you need to line the pastry case with baking parchment and fill with baking beans. Now if you don't have baking beans, you could use uncooked rice or lentils. This goes into the oven to bake for 15 minutes. Then carefully lift out the parchment and beans and return to the oven for a further 5 to 10 minutes until golden and crisp. Remove from the oven and allow to cool. So now to finish the filling. Whisk the remaining 1½ eggs into the apple mix and spoon this into your tart case. Core and thinly slice the remaining 3 apples. Add the rest of your lemon juice and toss together. Fan the apple pieces out over the puree and it's ready for the oven. Then bake for 30 minutes until golden. Finally, heat 75 grams of apricot jam in the microwave for about 30 to 45 seconds until it's runny. Brush this thickly over your flan. So now that's ready to serve. You could enjoy it with delicious custard, cream or even ice cream. Apple and vanilla flan. Enjoy. So that's apple and vanilla flan. Why not try pear and chocolate cake pots? These spiced apple and pear muffins are quick and simple to prepare. You could enjoy them at breakfast, take them on a picnic or have them for afternoon tea. The first thing I need to do is preheat my oven to 200 degrees C, 180 if it's fan assisted or gas mark 6. Break 2 medium eggs into a large bowl with 100 millilitres of vegetable oil and 180 millilitres of semi-skim milk and whisk together. Then add 75 grams of light soft brown sugar, 75 grams of caster sugar and whisk well. Next, take 300 grams of self-raising flour, a teaspoon of ground ginger and a heaped teaspoon of ground cinnamon and sift into a large bowl. Then core and peel 2 apples and 2 pears and chop. Add these to the dry ingredients and stir well. The reason why I'm adding the apples and pears to the dry ingredients is to help stop them sinking while they're baking. So the next step is to take the egg mixture and pour over the apples and pears and mix thoroughly. Line a muffin tray with 12 paper muffin cases and fill each case 2/3 full. These go into the middle of the oven for 20 to 25 minutes until lightly golden and cooked through. Transfer to a rack and prick each muffin several times with a cocktail stick. Take 100 millilitres of maple syrup and spoon over the muffins. So there you have it, spiced apple and pear muffins, perfect for any occasion. So that was spiced apple and pear muffins. Why not try something savoury? Apples and pork go hand in hand, and this delicious recipe for pork tenderloin with apples and mushrooms is really simple to make. Begin with the stuffing. Peel and finely dice half a small red onion, and then wipe and chop 125 grams of chestnut mushrooms. Melt 15 grams of butter in a large non-stick frying pan and add the vegetables. Fry these ingredients over a medium to high heat for between 4 and 5 minutes, ensuring that you stir regularly. So once all the liquid has evaporated, remove the pan from the heat and allow that to cool for about 10 minutes. Take a small bunch of sage, remove 2 large leaves, chop and add these to the mushroom mixture along with 25 grams of grated Parmesan cheese. Season with salt and pepper and stir together. Now for this recipe you need 500 grams of fresh trimmed pork fillet, and to add the stuffing, slice along the length of the pork fillet without cutting all the way through. Open out and spoon the stuffing inside. Lay 88 grams of Parma ham or prosciutto out onto a clean surface with the slices slightly overlapping each other. Place the stuffed pork fillet on top and wrap the ham around it so it's completely covered. Preheat your oven to 200 degrees C, 180 degrees for a fan oven or gas mark 6. I need to heat a tablespoon of oil in a large sauté pan so I can brown the meat. Add the pork with the seam side facing down. Cook for a minute, then turn the fillet onto the other side. Continue cooking and turning the pork for between 3 to 4 minutes until the ham is lightly coloured all the way round. Transfer the fillet to a baking tray and scatter 2 red-skinned apples, quartered and cored, around it. Then place the tray in the oven and bake the pork for 30 minutes or until cooked through. While the pork is cooking, add a knob of butter to your sauté pan. Fry a few sage leaves for 1 to 2 minutes until they're slightly crisp, then remove from the pan and set aside to garnish later. Once the pork is done, take it out of the oven and leave it to rest for 5 minutes. To serve the pork, place on a serving plate with the roasted apples. Spoon any juices from the baking tray over the top and garnish with the sage leaves. And there you go, stuffed pork tenderloin with apples. And if you haven't already seen it, I highly recommend the spiced apple and pear muffins.